The Terminator on 4K UHD disc. I did promise that I'd be getting together with Simon Nichols and taking a look at this, and also the 35mm print that Simon has. Now, we both have film prints of the Terminator. This is the Super 8 print, and at some point I'll hopefully get this on one of the Super 8 projectors and show you glimpses of this so you can get an idea of how good this Super 8 print is. But as I record this, hopefully I've already been over to Simon and we've done a 4K versus 35mm, similar to what we did with Aliens. Now, this time around, given I didn't actually open Aliens before we got there, I've opened this and checked that the single disc within actually runs. It's not the most exciting pack, but I have had a quick look at the 4K. It looks very good to me. Yes, I can see there's been a little over processing there perhaps, but that's something that doesn't really bother me because unlike many, I'm able to look at a film print and see it as it really was, and Simon of course the same, but the ultimate having a theatrical Cinerama print. So by the time I record this, hopefully that's done and dusted, and so it'll be uploaded soon. But as that's going to be predominantly a 35mm video, I thought I'd show you some of the things that have been happening here recently in terms of 35mm shows. Between Christmas and New Year, Ben Wales came over once more, and this time he brought another fabulous 35mm show for our enjoyment. The feature was Cool Runnings, but before we got there, he put together some adverts which were hugely enjoyable. Then there was a sort of a mini feature. It was PEPSI Presents Wired 3 from 1989, and this was a compilation of music videos including Queen on the Miracle Express. So that was something different. Plenty of other bands in there too, but that was something I hadn't seen before and I didn't even know it actually existed. Ben assembled all of this onto a pair of 6,000 foot spools, which meant only the one break in the show, and it was a very enjoyable show. I'd never actually seen Cool Runnings and I found it terrific fun. John Candy is always good, but so is everyone else in this film. If all goes to plan, Ben is going to bring over his 35mm copy of Brian De Palma's Mission to Mars next, and that's a film I think very highly of, apart perhaps from the slightly disappointing ending, but that's a common thing with a lot of films over the last 25 years or so. And then, a few days ago, Steve and Michael Rowley were here as part of their tour of home cinemas across the country. Steve brought some wonderful newsreels that he'd recently purchased via a Film is Fabulous auction for surprisingly little money. The one on Piccadilly I found particularly interesting, as it was mainly Piccadilly Circus and that whole area, and also another that was actually dye transfer Technicolor. And he also brought one of his Dimension 150 lenses with him, which was a process that rivals Cinerama, particularly so once Todd AO got involved. So I got Steve to tell us about this system. That's filling the entire screen.
You could shrink that down a bit. You might just do it. You just might get away with it.
So what is D150? Explain it, Steve, so I've got it on camera.
D150 process was a process to project a flat image onto a curved screen without any distortion. Hence, if you look at the front of the lens, you see the shape of the prism. And that was the idea, and that is the sort of effect you're supposed to get.
So it's similar to Cinerama?
Yes, and it's 118 degrees curved screen.
And what was Cinerama?
Cinerama originally was 3 strips of 35mm film, 6 perforations per frame to fill a 123 degree curved screen in perfect focus from edge to edge, to give you the illusion of actually being there, because the retina of the eye is 123 degree curve, so it would be just like looking at the real thing. And that was the idea with D150, but to do it with 70mm film rather than 3 strips of Cinerama.
So it saved a lot of complications.
An awful lot of complications, and this is awfully heavy.
It's a major piece of cinema kit.
It is. To take your expander out, so you've only got that, you can just get it through. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so that would curve at 118 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you're almost enveloping the audience.
That's the idea. It's like when I did my first experiments, a friend came over and I just ran a reel of 70mm film with the D150 lens, and in this particular part of the film the camera pans across like that, and my friend was just sat on a stool and he had to go and grab something, otherwise he would have just fallen off the stool. And that's the effect you want.
So as I said, for CinemaScope, it puts you in the picture.
Yes, and what you want is total immersion of the audience in the picture. The sound, yeah, brilliant, loud sound, loads of bumps and bangs, but you need the picture to go with it. And a big flat picture doesn't do it.
Given it was 70mm, I presume that was 6-track mag, was it?
Yes.
So the best sound we've ever...
Yeah, it was actually a reel of a reprint of Lawrence of Arabia, and it was the desert scene, and as the camera pans round, he almost fell off the stool.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and he was sitting about 8 feet away from a 12-foot wide screen.
What would it do on a 70-foot wide screen in a...
This is it. Yeah.
This is what we got to get back to.
This is it. That's the future.
Steve is currently constructing a new home cinema and a D150 screen, so I'll be getting up there as soon as possible once he's ready to show this fabulous process from the past, which we think needs to be readopted by cinemas today, wherever possible. It works on all projectors, and if I had a 120-degree screen in here, approximately, this reel of Spider-Man 2 would have had even more impact than it already does. Steve also brought the original DTS demonstration film, which I didn't let him leave with. This includes extracts from Backdraft and Born on the 4th of July, as well as the exploding DTS disc, which made the system so famous early on. While Stephen and Michael were here, we did put some home video discs on. I think it was just the one 4K we had a look at, but we did a few Blu-rays, and we then did some 3D Blu-rays, and the first one I selected to put an extract on, the opening of the Polar Express. Now the opening of this is terrific when the train pulls in, but I didn't have it quite loud enough, so I corrected that for the next one, which is what I think is my favourite 3D disc, and that's Dread. And what I like about this, enough of you out there have told me this was actually shot in genuine 3D, unlike many of them that are faux 3Ds that are done afterwards. But this one, it's the claustrophobic nature once they're in that apartment block where they're trapped and you feel you're trapped too. It's a bloodthirsty film. I put on a rather bloodthirsty extract. I just selected a chapter, gave it a try, and it sound and look fantastic. Real depth to that extract in here. And the final one, as you can imagine, was James Cameron's Avatar. It's not a film I particularly like. If it had been about an hour shorter, I think I'd have really enjoyed it, but as it is, I don't much like Avatar and haven't seen the sequel for that reason. But I put on a flying extract in this, one of the cartoon sequences, and I think everyone was quite impressed with how that looked. The lenticular, I don't know if you're getting that, but very nice cover on this Blu-ray. So the next video, which hopefully is going to be out a few days or a week after this one, we're going to be looking at the Terminator. And yes, I can understand a few people might be a little upset that it's not entirely representative of how a film print looks, but I think the 4K was done so that people who generally purchase 4K discs are going to look at this on their tellies and think that looks fantastic and it's up there with the best of 4K. I think that's the intention, but also this did have a minor re-release at cinemas, and I can imagine on huge screens, particularly those like the Ronson Theatre IMAX, the Empire Leicester Square, and the huge screen they've got at the back of what was formerly that great auditorium. It's been split in two, and the BFI IMAX. I would imagine the 4K work that's been done to this, with the extra degradation you get of stretching the image onto a huge screen, I think this will look terrific, even if it's from the 4K disc or the DCP. DCP, of course, would be better, but I think this one would surprise a few people if you had a projector and a huge screen that you could put it on. So anyway, that's coming soon. Shouldn't be too long, and till then, if you like this video, please give it one of those thumbs up clicks, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and until the next one, bye bye for now.